One. Hi guys, welcome back to Cupcakes and Protein Shakes. I am your host, Savannah. We are doing another episode where we're sitting down with a fellow athlete and going over their journey. So welcome to the show, Chelsea. I'm excited for you to share your story. So introduce yourself, tell us where you're from.
Okay, hi, I'm Chelsea Kamody. I'm from Cleveland, Ohio, but I live in Gainesville, Florida now.
Okay, awesome. And we're going to jump into your story. So it's where did it all begin? Where do you want to start? How did it start for you?
Okay, so actually way back when I was in high school, I was 16 and I was always an athlete. I ran, I played volleyball, I played softball, and my grandma passed away and we were super close and I just didn't really know how to handle it. So I started running a lot. I started exercising a lot, which probably wouldn't be a bad thing. But with my, I'm really tall, I have a really fast metabolism in general, and I just lost my appetite. So I was exercising a ton, not eating, not for any bad reason at the time, but I just was kind of down and upset. And I started losing weight. That's just me. Like, even right now, I guess we can get into this later. Like, my calories right now are at 4,200. And I'm like almost 6 foot tall. So I have to eat a lot to like even just maintain my weight. So when I wasn't eating, I was just dropping weight like crazy. And being 16, I didn't really notice at the time. But then when I started to notice, I kind of thought, oh, wow, like that's kind of cool. Like, I'm dropping weight. That must mean I'm getting like fitter. And then it just kind of became a whole mental game. And by the time the end of my sophomore year, I was like 30 pounds down. And keep in mind, I was not big. I was always tall and lean. So it got to the point I was like not healthy. I was probably like I said, I'm like 5'11", and I was probably down to like 105, which was actually
Oh,
not even close to my lowest. But at the time, I was still living with my parents and they noticed. And so they actually got me into counseling, and that's when I kind of really started spiraling, because I did not think I needed help. I didn't think I had a problem. I was just being quote unquote healthy. So then I finished high school and I was able to maintain like a somewhat healthy weight, even though I was still lean, just because I was kind of still under the control of my parents. And then I went off to college and just all hell broke loose because I was a runner too. I was running cross country, not really eating. I dropped probably down into like the 80s, and again, almost 6 foot tall, and I was like 85 pounds. I was in and out of the hospital several times because my heart rate started going so low. Like, they literally didn't think I was gonna be able to function without passing out and possibly dying. I think during college I was hospitalized maybe 4 or 5 times for a pretty lengthy time, a couple weeks. And so, my professors obviously all knew. I was able to like complete my work from the hospital, which was like embarrassing. But at that point, it was like a full blown eating disorder. So I couldn't just turn it around. I would tell myself like it's time to get better. But then right when I'd leave the hospital, I would like end up at the gym doing cardio for 3 hours. It was just like my mind was just so far gone. So I ended up graduating college. I honestly don't know how I graduated like with high honors, just because like my mental state was so bad at the time. But school has always been one of my strong points. I'm actually a teacher now, but I went off and I moved away, which was even worse. I left Ohio, got my first teaching job in Virginia. So I knew no one. I was in a very rural area. I had no friends. So it was me, my job, and the gym. And I guess I was just kind of lonely. So I spent a lot of hours at the gym, again, not taking care of myself. And that's when my weight dropped. I think my lowest was like 68 pounds. So like it was, I honestly look back and I like, I'm not an overly religious person, but I really I'm like, I don't know how I survived that time frame. But I ended up in the hospital again, and they basically told me like my heart, my liver, my kidney, like everything was failing. And doctors, I don't want to say they gave up, but at that point I was an adult. It's like, we can't fix you. I kind of had to take it in my own hands. So that was kind of my big turning point. For years, I would read articles about like competitors or like fitness models. Literally, I'd be on the cardio machines for hours just looking through like fitness magazines, being like, I want to look like them. But obviously, my version of healthy was far from healthy. So at that point, I told myself, I'm like, I don't know if I'm ever going to do it, but I'm going to set the goal to compete. This was in November of 2015. So by March of 2016, so like 6 months later, was it 5 or 6 months later, I actually stepped on stage for the first time. I wouldn't say I was ready by any means, but I gained about, from that November till that March, I gained about 40 pounds. So I still wasn't like what I would consider healthy for my weight, but I was like alive and functioning and a much healthier place. Cause I think I stepped on stage around like 115, which again, way too small for my size or my height, but it like was a healthy, doable weight. And I look back at pictures now, I'm like, oh Lord, why did I do that? But I had no idea what I was doing. I literally didn't know. Now I feel like social media, you can connect so easily to other I didn't know a single person who competed. I didn't even know what posing was. I went up there and I was just like doing these really odd things. But it was such a proud moment because I was like, that was really my turning point. Like I did it. Like for years, I told myself I was going to get healthy. But at that point, I was there. I was on the right track. And honestly, since then, it's really just been like uphill. I've gone through like lots of different like kind of fitness phases. So I competed in probably like 15 shows now. I actually have my pro card in the OCB and NGA, but I also do Spartan races. I've done like 27 Spartan races. I've actually competed in powerlifting. I've done some triathlons. So I've kind of been like, once I got myself healthy, it was just like such like a joy because I was sick for 10 years. It wasn't like a couple months where it was from the age of 16 to like 25. So it was like a 9-year time frame where my life was completely consumed with lies, sneaking to the gym, honestly going to bed at night, not knowing if I was going to wake up because I just like, I could feel like my heart just like, just wanting to give out. And I just couldn't, when they say eating disorders is a mental disorder, like it truly is. I wanted to be better. I didn't like how I looked. I actually hated how I looked, but I just couldn't like turn it around. My body, it was like my mind would want one thing, but then somehow my body would end up back in the gym and I'd be eating a salad. And so, yeah, that's kind of like in a nutshell. And then, yeah, here we are now.
Oh my gosh, Chelsea. Well, first off, I appreciate you just being open and honest to like share your story because I know it's very hard to talk about going through and bringing back those memories. But I'm so happy that you are here today and that you are healthy and that, through whatever means it was, you found a way to overcome it. So I applaud you for that. And I'm excited because it just seems like you're in a good place right now to be able to share everything that you have so far.
It's funny because so after that first show I did, I kind of was like, I'm going to brush the last 10 years under the rug. We're going to forget that ever happened. Because in my mind, no one knew. I was just kind of like, I guess I didn't realize how worried people were about me. Because I remember for the first time, I decided to do like a transformation picture of like my first day of wanting to get healthy to my show. And I was like, very honestly, I remember I was so nervous to post that because it like more embarrassed of how I looked at the beginning, but I did. And I just remember it just blew up. And I had so many friends from high school, from college, family members who were just like, I was so worried about you. And it just made me realize like how, like in my head, I was like, nobody, it was just kind of me living in my own little world. No, but even looking back to the things I did. So like in college, our college gym would open at 7 a.m. I would get up at 3:45 every day, ride my bike to the YMCA because they opened at 4. I would work out there from 4 to 7, ride my bike to the college gym center. I'd work out there from like 7 to 9, go to my first class for an hour, come back, work out. It was just like, I look back, I'm like, what was wrong with me? It was just like how I lived and managed to live. I honestly, I don't even know, but I guess not just my behaviors, but obviously how I looked. Even looking back at pictures, sometimes they'll come up in my memories and I'll just like be proud, but at the same time, just like shudder and cringe because it looked so, I just looked like a walking skeleton.
Yeah, at your height and that weight, like that is like a child's weight.
Yeah.
It's not a grown woman's weight. It's not just,
No.
it's a little on the lean side. Like it is severely on the verge of death. Like I am
Yeah.
shocked that your body could handle that much exercise. And it goes to show more is not better. A lot of the times less is more when it comes to training and nutrition. And sometimes like with the calories too, like it seems like your body was at such a deficit for so long. It's almost like now you're having to eat so many calories because it's just not used to it.
It's funny you said that because that's something I've always tried to figure out too. And I've worked with like various coaches throughout my competing, and they've all said the same thing. They're like, you're an anomaly because I am tall, I am like long limbed, but the fact, even just like to maintain my weight, it's like kind of an absurd number. And I'm active being like a teacher, and I'm in the gym, but I think it is because you hear some girls have eating disorders and they have the opposite effect. It's like they gain a lot of weight and can't lose it. And like I think almost my body did the opposite. It's like it's almost just now it's thriving so much, and just uses the calories. And there's good and bad. Like honestly, when it comes to like when I was prepping for shows, like you'll probably find this kind of crazy. My last season I did, my carbs never dropped below around 450, 500 the entire prep, which is kind of, I know, insane. Like, and it's kind of hard for me because I can never relate to anybody. Everyone's like, oh, I'm so hungry, I can't wait till my next meal. And I'm over here like, oh God, I feel so full. But then
So when I'm thinking about it, it's like every single prep is different, every body's is different.
yeah,
Somewhere in your competitive journey, there's suffering, right?
yeah.
Some of us, it's at the beginning. For you, it seems like there was a huge period of suffering. So now your
Yeah.
preps are easy, right?
Well,
Sometimes it's different.
it's easy and stuff, but when it comes to like right now, I'm actually trying to build muscle. And I'm gonna tell you what, it's almost just as frustrating, I feel like, as when someone's trying to lose weight and can't. And I'll just be, hit my macros, and then I'll step on the scale and I'll be like, I lost 2 pounds. How is it possible? And
Yeah.
it's so I feel like, I am just thankful to be healthy because I'm at a very healthy weight where I am right now. But you know how it is when you're like, and you're bulking or trying to gain muscle, and it's a good thing to kind of see the size gain. And so yeah, there's good and bad to it, but just being a taller female in general, I know I'm always going to kind of look lengthier, so putting on muscle is always kind of like the struggle anyways, but I'll take that struggle over others I've had.
I know. So, okay, I want to still go back to like when your mindset was at its worst, like what was the drive that exercise was like your tool? Like why did you hold on to exercise so
Yeah,
much?
I think honestly, this is going to sound weird, but I've always been a very like structured and healthy. And so in my head, healthy at the time was eating healthy, exercising. But for me, and I've always been, and I know this about myself, if I like shoot for here, I'm going to go end up going here. And so, like, you run a mile, but I'm going to run 10. And, that's just always how I've been. I have a very obsessive personality. I guess that's the way to put it. And so, once like I would get on the elliptical and it's like I can go an hour. Well, let's go an hour 15. Well, I did an hour 15. Let's go an hour and a half. Now we can go 2. And same with like eating healthy. I would hear people talk about, it was almost like a comparison game. I would hear them be like, oh, and again, keep in mind, these are people who could probably stand to lose weight. Like, oh, I'm eating really good today. I just had a salad and like a banana. I'm like, oh, well, if they did that, I should probably like eat less than that. And that was probably the hardest thing when I kind of had my turnaround, because I went from eating like very little to a lot really fast. So I won't say when I initially had that flip of the switch, I was totally healthy, because I almost had to like isolate myself. I couldn't go out to dinner. I didn't want to go to family functions because I knew I would compare myself. Because once I see like, oh, she ordered a salad, I'm eating all this. Oh, that's way too much. But when I was like in my own mindset, my own zone, kind of like my own little world, I was just hitting my goals. I did my plan, and now it's whatever. Everyone knows that like it's just part of life. But when I was still kind of overcoming that mindset, I kind of learned where my struggles were and I avoided them. So even like when I first got healthy, I avoided holidays with my family for the first maybe year. I not I lived in Virginia, they were in Ohio, and I would be like, oh, I have so much work, I can't come home. And it wasn't that I didn't want to see them. I just knew like being around big groups of people at holidays or whatever, I knew that would cause me to spiral. And I was like, at this point, my health is more important than that. And I remember the first time though I went home, and I had gained like 50 pounds at that point. I didn't tell my parents. I didn't let, they didn't know because I had been living in Virginia. I remember walking in the door and they just like, I think they both just started crying because they had been so worried about me since like the time I was 16. And I knew they just wanted to help, but I didn't really go into that. But my high school years were rough because I felt like they were battling me, which I know is common for people with eating disorders. So it was a constant fight, them trying to get me to eat and me like, I hate you, like I'm not eating. And it was bad. But now I look back and I know like it was all out of love. But when you're young and don't know any better, you think they're against you. But I know they came to my first show. So that was big. Like I said, that show, I look back and I looked, it wasn't the prettiest, but I have the biggest smile because I was just so proud to get up there.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. I can't even imagine how they were feeling getting to see you and then see you thrive in a sport that you have to eat. It is
Yeah.
eating muscle is or eating muscle. Eating is how you build muscle, right? It is all about the diet. It's all about the structured cardio plan. You want to progressively increase the cardio. You can't go from 100 for a whole entire contest prep. And you have to spend time reverse dieting your calories up again and decreasing the cardio as well.
And it's amazing because since I've gained weight, it's not just how I look that has changed. So like I like right now, like my hair comes like, that's one thing everyone like knows me for. I have like super, super thick curly hair that's just like everywhere. And everyone always like, oh, your hair's so pretty. When I was sick, I couldn't get my hair past my shoulders. It was literally as like frail as probably like a 90-year-old's. It was just falling out everywhere. My skin was just like scaly. My nails were breaking all the time. And actually, one thing I'm actually very proud I was able to reverse was my bones. So in my junior year of high school, after I first started kind of all my issues, I broke 23 bones in 1 year because I was still running. And I was just stress fracture here and there, breaking a foot here, breaking a foot there. And it was killing my running career, but it was because my bone density was so low. And that probably took me the longest to reverse. For a while, even when I was a healthy weight, my bone density, I had osteopenia. So even though I was like in my 20s, I had the bones of like an 80-year-old. So I had to be very careful. But lifting was what my doctor said really saved me. Plus, obviously, increasing my weight. And now they're honestly great. Like I said, I do Spartans, triathlons. I haven't broken a bone, probably since high school. So it's like amazing just how the body just like, one thing goes up, everything goes up.
Yeah. So what like when you say the switch was flipped, was this an overnight realization or like what really changed your mind? Was it you? Was it someone that something said? Like what kept you on the
Like
path?
I had wanted to, like, it wasn't like I didn't want to be healthy. I had for years wanted to look like those fitness models. I had wanted to compete. I had wanted to just get my life back, but I just I guess my eating disorder had literally controlled my mind. But it was once I was in the hospital that one time and they basically told me that was when I hit my lowest weight and my heart was failing, my kidneys were failing, like everything was literally just shutting down. And I wasn't even allowed to get up to go to the bathroom. It was that bad. Like the bathroom was right there, but they wouldn't even want me to sit up out of bed. That's how low my heart rate was. And that's when I was like, I kind of realized I was like, this is it. Like I fooled people for years. I fooled doctors for years that I was okay. Like I can't fool my body. It's shutting down. So I know myself. I'm a very goal-oriented person. And I was like, the only way I have a chance is to set a goal. And that's when I set the goal to compete. And like I said, I really didn't know if it was going to happen, but I started like, I'm a science teacher. I do love science. And that's one thing that really I love about bodybuilding is the science behind it. So I started doing research. I started like looking up plans. I started doing this and that. And the funny thing was most of the stuff I ended up looking up was guy stuff because most females don't eat the amount I did. And, I look up competitors' plans. A lot of them are like chicken, tilapia, broccoli. I'm like, this is not what I need. So, yeah. And I ended up just kind of starting where I could. I started meal prepping. And then after like the first couple weeks, it was really hard, but I started feeling good again. I started not feeling like I was going to pass out. my strength started going up. I could tell my face was filling out again. And at that point, I was just all in. I was literally, I remember I was just pouring like olive oil out just to get the calories in, because I knew it was like almost relieving. I was like, I'm doing it. Like I'm actually like healing. And I honestly forgot about competing after by like Christmas time. I was just happy to be alive again. And I kind of like didn't even think about it until maybe like end of January, February. I'm like, I'm looking good. I'm feeling good. Like, why not? And I started looking up shows, and there was one really close to where I was living. And I was like, you know what? Like, we said we were going to do this. Like, why not?
Yeah.
So,
did you work with a coach during your prep?
yeah. So that first prep, I wouldn't really say I had a coach. I connected with this figure competitor online. I guess it was Body Space at the time. I think that was called on bodybuilding.com. And she kind of like gave me some guidance along the way. But it was kind of, and then at that first show, I actually met a posing coach, and who was based in Virginia. And so I ended up joining their little like team at the time. I didn't have them as like a coach, but for posing, which was very helpful, because I ended up doing 4 shows that season. And so once I learned to pose, obviously that helped a lot. But it was really after that season that I feel like I made the most progress, because I ended up hiring like a real coach. His name's Cliff Wilson. And he really helped me a lot. And he was the one who actually got me into powerlifting, which was great I think he like really knew how to work with my mindset. And the fact I was so goal oriented, he's like, let's focus on strength rather than the weight. And yeah, so that was my first coach I worked with. And I worked for him for a couple of years, for I think 2 of my seasons.
Okay, you said 15 shows.
Well, yeah, let me see. So my first season I did 4. My second season I did 4. My third season I did 3 plus 2. So 8, 12, 13, 14. So maybe it's 13.
Okay, I mean, still, that's a lot of shows. It's a lot of shows.
I will say, like I said, my first season, I wouldn't say any of those shows were that like great. It was more just me being like excited to do it, if that makes sense. And I finally had friends who competed. So like when they did like team shows in the area, I of course like, I got to be there with my friends. Like I got to do this. I don't think I placed very well at all in any of those. But at that point, honestly, for me, it was just kind of like more for just to do it. It wasn't really till I started working with, I think, Cliff, that I really was like, went from just like being alive and doing it to being like, let's like see what you can do with this.
Wow. I mean, and then to leading up to becoming a pro, like what was that like, of like getting a pro status after this full journey?
That was super exciting. I remember that show because it was actually, I ended up doing it up north in Pennsylvania. So my family was able to come from Ohio, and I had some friends. So I had like a whole group in the audience. And again, I had no expectations for that. I remember though, there was 2 girls going for like the final, and me and her were up there, and I was just like, I can't believe this is happening. Like, so that was definitely, when I say like a dream come true, it literally was. I was like, this is something I always just like dreamed about. And I was like, oh, I can't believe this is happening, because it's like years ago, I was the one in the hospital bed, like reading these magazines and stuff. So it's ironic because I've heard this so many times, and I'm not going to argue it, but they say people who compete or who have eating disorders should not compete. I hear that a lot. And I'm not going to say that that's probably not true for a lot of people, but for me, I can honestly say competing like saved my life. And if I had not set that, I really don't think I would have dug myself out of the hole. I can see why they say that, because it is a very, like, that I know you're a pro and you're a competitive athlete, and it's very like, measure your food, have to do all this cardio certain times. But so I see, but for me, for my personal story, like competing was the best thing that happened to me.
No, it's seriously, like I've talked to a lot of girls that have came through eating disorders, and it's just that education piece when they feel good and they see that, okay, if I eat more, sure, it's more calories and that's scary. Even if I gain weight, but I'm looking better, I'm feeling better. And if you can tie the food to the feeling and the food to, okay, this is part of the, this is a process. This is going to get me to this goal. If I eat more, I
Yeah.
will actually look and feel better. I know it's crazy. Sometimes you eat more and you drop weight too. Just the education of learning, how does weight loss seriously work? How does muscle building work? And then how competing is so structured that it does help if you're, I like things at a certain time.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily like typical, it could seem obsessive, but I think it's very good just to learn about yourself and to kind of educate of like, how do I feel with this food? How do I feel with that? How do I feel with this exact amount of carbs and calories and all that different data?
And honestly, for me, like the friends and support I made, not just like in real life, but like on social media, it was just so like that just you probably know that too. It just feels so good to have just so many people, even people you don't know, who just like want the best for you and cheering you on or like saying like, because at first I was honestly, even now, I'm not like proud of my past. But every so often I'll share in like groups on Facebook or like on my Instagram, like a transformation picture. And I always feel like it's really nice when someone reaches out and is like, you inspired me, or like I showed your picture to someone and I know it really helped them. And I'm like, that's why like again, I hate looking at those old pictures and it's like embarrassing. But at the same time, I'm like, if this can help someone, because that's something I could have used back then.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, that is why I've posted a lot of my journey online. That's why we're here today. This is why the podcast was created, because it's just, if it helps one person, if it helps one person, realize that one, you're not alone, that these, thoughts or disorders, like there's so many girls out there and guys that struggle with eating, with training, with trying to fit in, with trying to be skinny, with trying to build muscle, with trying to look a certain way. And I think the comparison game, now with social media, it's a lot. And so
Yeah.
even like young girls, like, hey, I know you see these fitness models and the pros, and you only get to see them at their leanest and the best, but you don't see that transformation of where they all came from when they were your age and what they were doing. So I'm glad that you're able to like show that this is a healthy tool for you. You can abuse competing if there's some people, but like for the most part, a lot of us that do this, that become pros, we do it because we love it. It makes us feel good and we want to help other people. So I'm so excited that you were able to share your story. And like right now, what are you working on and what are your current goals right now?
So, it's kind of funny. After my last season, I really wanted to put on some size. I did my first pro show and I won it. And I was like, because it is, for me, it's the shoulders. I naturally can put on muscle on my legs and glutes, but being so tall, it's the shoulder. So I was like, I'm going to take some time to build my shoulders. But as I've put on muscle and grown, I love myself a little bit bigger. So every time I think I'm like, okay, I want to prep, I want to like get ready for a show, I'm like, I really don't want to lean out. I mean, I guess it's different because for me and for my body type, I'm not only tall, I'm super long and like 80% of my body's legs. So when I lean out, it's not like I just look like petite. I look just, and even if no matter how much muscle I have being so tall, it just looks very skinny. And so I know I will at some point. It's just right now I'm really enjoying putting on size. And I have some Spartans coming up, and I really like that because it's like I was a runner. I definitely try to like minimize that now because I really, for my body, the lifting's better. That's why I like those kind of races because it's a lot of like body weight, like strength in there, obstacles with the running. I actually was thinking about maybe doing a few powerlifting meets again too, just for the heck of it. But as far as when I'll compete next, I haven't really quite pinpointed it because I really do want to make sure I have like you want to step up there and bring your best. And the fact I am just very like content and happy right now. I'm just kind of working on building right now, I guess.
Yeah,
And
no,
see.
I love that too. Like tall frames, it makes it hard because when you go against girls that are even an inch or two shorter, that does make a difference if you're long legged, long limbed. It's just you have to build so much mass to even be comparable, like for the balanced way. So the longer off seasons, the better. Truly, you will never regret taking time off. Like when you're prepping, like you can't build muscle, right? So,
Yeah.
off season, the improvement season is where those true improvements are made. And if you're not quite ready to go into a contest prep and you're enjoying the off season, like just keep going as long as you can.
Yeah, and especially since I'm not, because I talk to some girls too, and they'll get to that point where they feel like uncomfortable, because they put on size. I'm like, honestly, for me, when I feel uncomfortable, maybe this is because of my past, it's when I get lean. Even when I did like a mini cut last year, I kind of was like, ooh, like even though I was still healthy and way above where my stage weight was, I guess because I kind of learned to just really appreciate myself being the size I am, a little bit bigger, which is still very lean. And that's the thing, like when I say I'm bigger, like when I stand up, I'm still just very long. But I kind of like that more than when I was very just nothing, like a pencil.
To be true, like when I look back at like past shows and like stage leanness, I know that I technically looked my best, but I felt my worst. And
Yeah.
I don't actually really like myself when I look almost past the point of lean into that kind of like stage lean, looking like a skeleton kind of. And you're just like, there's the life is kind of out of your face. It's out of like, there's no curves. It's just straight muscle and bones. And you're like, looks great for stage, but in terms of everyday life, I 100% appreciate how I feel and like having curves in the off season too. Just it's a lot more feminine as well.
Yes. And for me, one of my biggest struggles is, as I've said, even to maintain my weight, how much I have to eat. So, like when I drop weight, it's like, and I know I've heard this with other competitors, it's like my metabolism when I start losing just goes crazy. And once, like, I know a lot of people say post show, they'll gain weight. My weight just always keeps dropping. This has happened every season. And once you're stage lean, if you keep dropping, that's not where you want to do what you want to do. So for me, it's always just such a struggle then to even get any of the way back. So I'm always like almost nervous for that because it happens every time. And then once my body starts losing, it's just like, let's keep going. And I just don't want to, especially with my past, and I'm kind of like, it's kind of sketchy grounds to get around. So
What do you eat to hit 4,000 calories a day? I know you mentioned olive oil, which is a great,
I mean, I eat a lot of like the normal, my amounts are quite big. Like, so my lunch, I literally like, I have like 450 grams of brown rice, for example, which, that's a lot of rice, cooked rice. And then I do a lot of chicken rice, sweet potatoes, but I do a lot of extras. So like for my sweet potatoes, I like pile it with like coconut oil, honey, peanut butter. So that way it's not, I try to do a lot of non-too filling foods or else I, feel disgusting the whole day. So adding a lot of like the kind of like peanut butter, honey, they're fairly healthy, but I get a lot of extra calories with that. Juices, cream of rice. I love cream of rice and it doesn't really fill me up, but I get like a lot of carbs for it. Bagels. Sometimes, I mean, I will do like ice cream or Pop Tarts just to hit the calories. And that was one thing that was probably the hardest part for me. And still, sometimes I'll have to remind myself because you know how it is as an athlete. You think like healthy, you want to be healthy. And sometimes I have to remind myself my healthy isn't what a lot of people's healthy is. Like I might, if I'm lower on calories for the day, like even if I want that like salmon and broccoli, like I might have to go for the burger because that's my healthy, and that's hard in a world where a lot of people are, let me get the salad, let me go for a walk and I'm healthy. And for me, it's kind of like the opposite. And that's the one thing I guess sometimes still, I don't want to say it's a struggle, but I will have to remind myself,
yeah,
like,
no, I like that you're bringing this up because again, when we compare what's working for us, right? If you were in your box and you didn't know what anyone else in the whole entire world ever ate before, and you thought like, okay, I feel good when I have burgers and ice cream to hit my calories and I need there, and you had no reference point, you would be fine. But it's just the fact that we do have so much connectedness to what's everyone eating. And then it's like what diet trends are in all these magazines, and everyone's obsessed with this diet culture of be skinny or have a healthy shake or 0 calorie this or whatever it is. Yeah.
that's probably, and there's one thing I will say, and this, I'm sure anybody would agree with me who's struggled in the past. They always say you never actually get over an eating disorder. And like, I will completely agree with that. I think like you learn ways to deal with it. Because even though like, I will say I definitely went through, even when I was a healthy weight, my mind, like, my first season, for example, I look back, I was not healthy mentally. I was so obsessive, which at the time was probably good. I got myself healthy, but I was one of those people like I would skip times with friends, any events, because if that was my meal time, I like felt like I had to be perfect with that. Cause at that time I wasn't following macros. I was like doing a meal plan, and I thought like, the world would end if I missed that one meal at that time. And it really ran my life. And I don't regret it, because at the time I really needed to get myself healthy. But, now it's taken me that many years. I mean, that was way back in like, 2017 or 18. Now I'm finally at that point where I'm like, it's okay. I can go out with friends. I can have a drink. But I mean, honestly, that took me a while to kind of get to that point, to just like relax and realize it's okay to miss a day at the gym. It's okay to go out and like eat off your macros, even when for me, eating off my macros might mean not hitting them. But that would be my freak out too. I would not go to dinner with people because I would be like, oh, I might not get enough food and then I won't hit my macros. And now I'm like, just go and then have another meal when you get home. And so that really was a process. But as far as like I feel like I still, like I told you, I have to remind myself. So I wouldn't say I struggle, but I know my own mind. And like, if I start thinking like, oh, well, they're eating way less than me, I'll be like, nope, don't even look at them. Just worry about myself. And so you really do kind of have to like, I always say you're not going to win the war, but you can win like the daily battles,
Yeah, I love that so much. Okay, so tell me about just advice. Like if there's one thing that you would be able to say to your past self, what would that have been at the very beginning?
Um, I wish at the time I had more connections. I think now, I'm not saying like, I mean, I think there's great and bad to social media, but I think it's really nice that you can make so many connections. Way back then, I mean, not that I shouldn't say way back then, but I didn't have Instagram at the time. I had Facebook, you had like 100 friends. So I didn't know anyone in fitness. So I didn't have anyone to give me advice. I didn't have anyone to follow, because I feel like honestly following people who might have dealt with the same thing, or just people you admire. Like for me now, that's huge. Like I can follow someone who I'm just like, oh, I love her glutes and legs, and it inspires me to eat more so I can grow my glutes and legs. But make solid connections, not only for the knowledge, but who support you. Because that really kept me going at the beginning, I think, because it wasn't just for me. It was like doing it for my family, for my friends. It was getting healthy for everyone. And same with the shows, that's what would push me to kind of keep on the right track, because it wasn't just for me anymore. It was for the people cheering for me and wanting me to do well. Also, don't be afraid to like reach out for help. That was one thing I never did. I was always like, in my head there was nothing wrong, and I wouldn't talk to I mean, I would go to counselors and therapists, and I literally just would not listen. And they're specialists for a reason. But when I have people who reach out to me and ask me, I always say, you can't, because they normally will be someone who wants to help someone else. And I always say, you can't help someone with an eating disorder. They have to want to help themselves. So find your reason, whether it be like your kids, your family. For me, it was competing. Your reason to want to get healthy, because you need that. That's the only way you're going to be able to beat your mind, because being in like a war with your mind is really scary. So you really need something to overpower that you can beat your own mind.
Yeah, no, I love that because I mean, have not experienced it to that capacity, but there has been dark places, and it's so easy to get negative in the negativity. It's like a black cloud. One wrong thing happens, your mindset goes, okay, oh, blah, blah. And it just that voice, the little negative voice keeps getting louder and louder and louder and louder. And before you know it, a certain amount of days go by, becomes a personality trait. Now that's who you are.
Yeah.
And then you just really can't remember what it was like to be a positive person. It's so easy to do.
And that's kind of like for me now, I would say my biggest trigger, not even a trigger, when I go on, let's say, trips. I tend to like, I've been trying to let myself branch out more, as in like, not like, it's okay to not count every macro, just enjoy. But for me, I automatically, if like I'm at a restaurant, let's say, my mindset will go to the healthiest thing. And it's like, I have to just cognitively, it's like sometimes I wish I could just be normal and just look at a menu and be like, oh, that looks good, I want that. But it's like I almost have to go back and forth in my mind, like, well, you want this is healthier, but this is what you should do, because you don't want to go back home and lose 5 pounds. And sometimes that's frustrating, just having to deal with that. I'm like, oh my God, why can't I just have a normal mind? But it's one of the things, like, deal with the cards you're dealt. Like, it is what it is. And everyone's got their struggles. So
I love it. Okay. Is there anything that we haven't had time to talk about that you wish I would have asked you, or just how you want to end today's episode?
I do want to say just one thing. This is not really to do with fitness as much. So I'm a teacher. I teach eighth grade. And so it's kind of nice because I feel like even though like their science teacher, like for females, especially, like I kind of like see signs or like I'll see certain things they'll say or whatever. And like just me being like of my past without being too intrusive, it's kind of nice that I think because I've had that, like I'm able to like kind of talk to them sometimes in a way that a lot of people wouldn't understand, and so I don't know, I'm not saying it's good, but I guess it's like someone like I've never had depression, so I couldn't offer advice to someone with depression, but when you've gone through something, I feel like people can relate to you, and it's like a comfort thing. And so I don't know, I guess for me that's nice, not only as a teacher but like on social media, like when people can relate to me, it's just like a comfort thing,
Yeah.
and then understand each other.
I love
But
this. Okay. Well, if anyone does want to reach out to you to talk further about today's episode or anything at all, where could they find you?
So my Instagram is Chelsea.Therese. And then my Facebook is Chelsea Therese as
Okay.
well.
Well, I really, really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story. You've inspired me. I love that we're able to connect in this way. And hopefully this episode comes out, if it helps one person, and just to know that like there is support, there is hope, you can get better. You can use competing as a tool to help get you there. Either if you want to reach out to myself or you just to talk about any of these things, we're always open. So thank you for your time today. I'm so excited that you're able to come on.
I appreciate it.